Senator Brian Jones announced a new bill that will prohibit homeless encampments near sensitive community areas. He held a press conference at Grape Day Park in Escondido on Friday, September 23rd, and talked about why the bill is needed.
To do so, and it's unfair and dangerous for neighbors, families, and children that are near these sensitive areas. Our measure, along with Governor Newsom's Care Court, will hopefully work together to help end the public camping in these areas, while also compassionately assisting the homeless with getting treatment for their mental and health needs and finding a more suitable place to stay. Finally, let me emphasize our goal is to not criminalize homelessness, but to protect the public and help compassionately lift homeless individuals off the street through a very compassionate approach. Every Californian deserves a path off the streets, and our bill will help make that happen. We have a strong coalition of supporters here today, including Mayor Kevin Faulkner, Escondido Councilmember Mike Marasco, Escondido Councilmember Joe Garcia, Escondido Union High School District Board Member Dane White, Escondido Union School District Board Member Joan Gardner, Michael Branch, the CEO of the East County Transitional Living Center, Rincon Del Diablo Water Board Member Jim Mertlin, and I also want to thank the Interfaith Community Services for being here and taking an interest in this bill and helping us to craft it as we move forward. Other supporters that could not be here today but will be including a quote in our follow-up press package is the Alpha Project, a local nonprofit that helps lift individuals out of homelessness, and the El Cajon Police Department.
Jones introduces former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulkner to speak on the bill.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Senator. A street is not a home, period. It's common sense, and this bill is going to turn common sense into California law. Homelessness is soaring in California, and it's soaring in San Diego. And it's devastating for the people who are living it. And of course, it's devastating for the communities and the neighborhoods. We cannot allow homeless encampments to overwhelm the cornerstones of our community, our libraries, our parks, our schools. This is what this is all about. And Senator Jones recognizes this, and this is why his colleagues in Sacramento should pass this legislation. But of course, the state can only do so much. We need local action as well. I believe that every person has a right to shelter. And I also believe that when they are offered that shelter, they have an obligation to use it. We need significantly more shelter space in San Diego. Let me say that again. We need more shelter space in San Diego. And we need to get people inside those shelters and off the streets. I encourage every city to pull out all the stops and create this additional shelter space. Otherwise, this crisis will only deepen. It isn't right. It isn't right to let people live on the street. These are our fellow San Diegans. We must take action. And I look forward to supporting Senator Jones in this effort, in this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Faulkner.
Jones introduces Michael Branch, the CEO of the East County Transitional Living Center, located in El Cajon.
To talk about his story and the services that his organization provides.
Thank you. Yes, so we are the East County Transitional Living Center. We're located in El Cajon, California. So we are a shelter, but we're not just a shelter. We're actually a program of recovery. We're a one-year faith-based recovery program that offers 4 phases. And then there's transitional living, an additional 6 months on the end of that 1 year for people to find employment and permanent supportive housing. So we are, even though we're located in East County, California, we serve all of San Diego County and beyond, and look forward to being one of the community providers that's offering a solution to this crisis. So a little bit about myself. In the past, when I was transitioning out of the military, I struggled myself with some self-medication issues, and I found the East County Transitional Living Center and went through their program successfully. And then 12 years later, I've come back to lead the organization. And I know it works because I'm a living example of that. So what we're here to do, I see this bill as a bridge from a life of surviving in chaos to a bridge over to solutions. And we may not be the solution for everyone that's living on the streets, but with all the other community providers in San Diego and the government and everybody else, we can work toward a solution for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Jones introduces Escondido council member Joe Garcia.
We'll have some comments, and then he will follow that up with his comments in Spanish as well.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Joe Garcia, and I'm a city council member here in the city of Escondido. I was the only city council member that came out in the middle of the night during the point in time count. And let me tell you, it was an incredible experience for me as a chaplain with the police department. On those ride-alongs, I always had an opportunity to dialogue with our unhoused population. But coming out in the point in time count gave me an opportunity to be able to see a humanity that I had not seen. It is good time now, as the senator presents this legislation of a bipartisan legislation, that it comes forward and takes into account the local leadership. So many decisions that are made in Sacramento have a great impact locally, but no one takes this into account. Senator, thank you for doing that, because this, a common sense approach, I have no doubt will make a great difference for us locally and our communities. Thank you, Senator.
I want to thank Joe, Kevin, and Michael for being here, and the other supporters that are here in support this morning. I believe that this bill strikes the proper balance between accountability and compassion in helping tackle the homeless crisis, actually to begin tackling the homeless crisis while putting public health and public safety at the forefront and top priority. You can follow me on social media for updates on the bill and all things California.
Senator Jones fielded questions.
If you have questions for me or any of the supporters that are here this morning, we're certainly interested in your concerns and questions about the bill.
So this gives the cities the option of whether or not to designate these areas. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, one of the
Or a municipality,
yeah, the bill designates the areas as these are the community sensitive areas. It's up to the city whether they want to enforce it or not.
Okay.
Well, that's a good transition. What are your expectations as far as those goes? Because a lot of the jurisdictions are resource challenged.
Right.
But we have some of the top tier probably a resource challenge will not be applied.
CBS.
How is this
Well, we're going to. What I'm hearing from local elected officials, police departments, police chiefs, sheriffs, is Sacramento has taken too many tools away from them to be able to compassionately respond to the homeless situation. So what the goal here is to give one tool available to the locals that they can use. How they choose to enforce it is going to be up to them. What we're trying to do is just change state law so that they have a tool. And one of the things in particular is it's going to be up to the locals to figure out how they're going to do it. And then you asked me in particular, I missed one of your points.
Yeah, I was just basically, is your expectation that local jurisdictions are going to have the resources?
Right. So two things on the resources. And you mentioned hot teams also. I actually had a bill earlier this year that would have funded hot teams around the state. We're going to continue working on that bill. I have a bill right now on the governor's desk dealing with some of the commissions that deal with homelessness. So hopefully he'll sign that bill before the end of the month. And then the resources specifically, that's why we have the nonprofits here today, is there's many nonprofits in San Diego County that are ready to help, have the resources available, and we're going to have to be creative in finding all of those resources and making them available to the homeless people as we begin to clear these encampments.
Senator, we're talking about a population that may not be inclined to accept those kinds of resources. So to that end, maybe I think you're not really solving the problem.
that is certainly a concern. This bill, as I've shared with lots of people, the homeless crisis in California is huge. There's 120 legislators. If each 120 of us brought one good idea to the table, we could probably use all 120 ideas. This bill is not meant to be a panacea to solve all of the homeless problems. What we're focused on here this morning are sensitive community areas where families and children are supposed to be playing, gathering, living together, and we want to make sure that this is the first step to making those sensitive community areas safe.
Can you comment though on that specific idea that you're just moving the problem to another area?
Yeah, that sure. I think that as you mentioned, I believe some of the people that are in this homeless community, some people are there by choice, some people are not there by choice. Some people have the means to get out of that lifestyle and some don't. And so as we begin the steps of this bill, hopefully there will be some people in that community that can make the decisions to be well and live a productive life. Some people are going to need additional help, and we're going to have to continue working ideas to solve that entire problem.
I apologize for trusting you on this issue, but can you comment specifically on the idea that you're just moving the problem to
Sure.
another area?
Every Californian should be upset about how the homelessness is. And I understand that there's going to be business owners, there's going to be other areas where this problem, this challenge could move to. And that's going to require an additional step or additional bill or additional resources to deal with that. Yes, I agree with you that that is a concern. And we're going to find ways to deal with that. But this is just a small first step to start protecting our most vulnerable communities and populations.
And at the risk of hijacking the news conversation, Mayor Faulkner called for more shelters. There are no shelters here in Escondido. Councilman Garcia, maybe you want to address that. And while the El Cajon, transitional center is a great, option, that's an El Cajon. Versus here in Escondido, where do you stand on that? Council member, does the city have the resources?
Artie, specifically you're asking, does the city of El Cajon have services available?
No, Escondido.
Or Escondido, I'm sorry, yeah.
Would you put resources toward building a shelter here in Escondido?
The city of Escondido has invested millions of dollars to deal and to work with to try to find a solution for this. And one of the greatest supporters that we have is Interfaith. And the executive director of Interfaith is right here, and he can explain in detail a little more what you're asking.
So the problem is exactly as you describe it. There actually is a shelter here in Escondido. Our organization, Interfaith Community Services, operates it. It is full. There are no shelter beds available. This bill does not create the resources that we need to address the problem of why people are here in the parks. If we can create a bill that also creates the resources to provide people a place to go, then we're all in favor of it. This doesn't get to that point yet.
So are you in favor of this bill?
Not unless it creates resources to help people get into better places than parks.
And look, you're raising a legitimate concern. And one of the things last year that I supported is a $10 billion expenditure by the state to begin expanding mental health care facilities throughout the state. Unfortunately, that bill died on a party line vote. But we're going to keep pushing that idea. We're going to keep pushing for solutions. And I think the challenge is, one of the challenges in California with this homelessness, there's estimated 168,000 homeless people in the state of California. That is an outrageous number. But that number is so big, as I stated earlier. There's 120 legislators. If all 120 of us introduce a bill that begins a small step forward in solving the problem, I believe we can get there. And it's going to take a monumental effort of cooperation between the state, the locals, nonprofits, and everybody to overcome this problem.
So there already are laws about prohibiting people from camping in parks, from leaving your stuff on sidewalks and from camping on sidewalks. So it seems to kind of duplicates it. But there's also the Boise versus Henderson decision that says you can't cite these people for doing just that if there's no shelter beds available.
Right.
So is this seen as a way of being able to still enforce the laws while being aligning with that decision that's prohibiting some cities?
Boise versus Martin?
Yeah.
Well, we've looked into that. We've also looked into the legislation that the city of Los Angeles just recently passed. Specifically, the Boise decision does allow for exceptions to their ruling in sensitive areas for certain times and certain places, and we believe this bill complies with that aspect of the decision. To your question about additional bills or additional laws that are on the books, one of the things I'm hearing from law enforcement is that the current laws on the books aren't powerful enough and that they need an additional tool. Again, to restate, this is not a panacea. This is not to solve the entire homeless challenge in California. This is a huge challenge that all of us are going to have to work on. This is one small step to protect the most vulnerable of our community, children, in areas that they should be able to safely play and go to and not be harassed or interfered with.
Are there any steps currently to add more shelter beds within the city of Escondido, or is interfaith it for the moment being?
Well, I will say, I'll let Joe answer that question, but I do want to bring up a point that Michael just made me aware of. They did a encampment clearance in Chula Vista 2 weeks ago. Chula Vista doesn't have any shelters available, so East County Transitional Living Center was there available for the enforcement, and they took in 2 families and 1 individual as a result of that enforcement. And I think that kind of inspires me to go back to the story of the starfish on the beach and the little boy walking down the beach and throwing 1 starfish in the ocean at a time. And he's asked, "Why are you doing this?" And you're not going to make a difference. As he picks up a starfish and throws it in the ocean, he says, "It makes a difference to that one." And I can tell you Michael's organization is making a difference to those 2 families and that 1 individual that they met 2 weeks ago that would not have sought this type of recovery if they hadn't been there. I'll let Joe speak specifically to Escondido.
Well, to answer your question, of course, we always need more beds. There is no, there are more, there's more need than we currently have available. But there are other organizations, because this question has been asked, and as I'm trying to remember, they provided a list for us. Solutions for Change is another organization that has facilities here in Escondido that deals and helps and finds solutions for this community. So that is one more. And we continue to discuss on a yearly basis how we can continue to find solutions locally for this. But at this moment, I don't have any specific budget issues that I can tell you, because we haven't gotten to that point yet, but we are certainly discussing all of those.
And then as a whole, why bring this up now at this point in time? Is there an extra sense of urgency? Can you, or maybe as you were referring to, is this kind of building off the Harborside Park issue that was happening between us?
Well, it's a timely issue every single day that we do this. The legislative session opens again on December 5th, and we're making preparations to make sure that on December 5th, when we introduce this bill and get it into the legislature, we've got community groups that are going to be helping us. We've got conversations that we continue to have to improve the bill as it goes through the process. I would like to go back to the shelter issue and allow Mayor Faulkner to talk about some of the things he did in the city of San Diego when he was mayor, because if you all remember, San Diego, I think, did a fairly decent job of responding to this when he was mayor. So I'll let him speak to that a little bit.
Happy to, Senator. And directly, R2, I think to your point, cities need more shelter beds. They need more services. That's common sense. That is something that I pushed so very, very hard on when I was mayor. And I think the important thing was we did it for a couple of reasons. One, we need to get people off the street. They need a place to go. Not just a bed for the night, but the wraparound services, the mental health, the substance abuse, the job training, the housing navigation. It's a life-changing work that happens inside those shelters. Every city needs additional shelter beds. I think the bill that the senator is doing today is common sense. While we're doing that, you absolutely have to protect our sensitive sites, our parks, our schools, our libraries. there's a lot of work that has to be done. And again, I will go back to something I believe so very, very strongly, that every individual has a right to shelter. And that when cities and jurisdictions provide that shelter, you have an obligation to use it. And that's where this conversation needs to continue to go, to make a difference in people's lives, and also to make a difference out on the streets. The two absolutely go hand in hand.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Thank you all very much. I think we've hashed this. Thank you for giving me some information to anticipate as we present this in committee. I would encourage any of the community groups that are here today that as we work this bill through the committees up in Sacramento to please be available to testify, please be available to write in letters of support, letters of concern, as some have been raised already here this morning. This is a legislative process. Again, this is just the first step to start solving the problem and challenge of homelessness in California. Thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate your attention.